harder, harder, harder. One of the great translators of Buddhist text, John Blofeld, talked about sitting around with some of the first generation of actual Western American teachers, saying they sat round like a group of old men, each trying to pass a stool. Hard practice. It's the Soto Dharma of Shunryu Suzuku at San Francisco, John Wenger, who said, I think many years ago now, we're always told we should practice harder. Perhaps we should learn to practice softer. And of course, ordinary mind, we say that many times. Said it before. And the dangers of hard practice are, perfectly self-evident. But actually, is there more to it than that? And what would we mean by practice softer anyway? Perhaps we think just sitting, shikantaza, quiet, perhaps I think I'll hear the sound of emptiness. I don't know. What are we waiting for? Are we waiting for anything? Actually, Jacobet wrote this wonderful story parable that finishes, it's the last thing in Everyday Zen, the parable of Mushin, which is all about waiting for the train of enlightenment. And of course, what Mushin finds out is that it's not the train, it's not even the waiting, it's what he ends up doing while he's waiting for the train of environment. That's the practice, that's what counts. So if we're doing effort, or if we're doing restraint, either way, what are we trying to do? What's it for? Sometimes it's talking with people that shows you what's going on. Talking with students, that's the great thing about being a teacher, is you end up talking to students and they show you things, they tell you things. Sometimes you realise really quite important things. And I think this practice softer is a case in point here. You see, let's stick with Joko for a minute. We've been talking a bit about core beliefs of late. And the idea of, yes, it's the one that gives you the gut punch. It's the one that makes you feel like you want to be sick. That's it. That's the key. And try to suggest that actually that's a really problematic notion, because equally, as we've had people point out, it's very often that nag, that irritation, that vague sense of unease. So it's easy to make the idea of core belief or whatever into an issue. Because, and I'll say something again, I say it endlessly, it's resistance, which for Joko is what our practice is about. It's about the problem. It's about the difficulty of doing the practice in this moment. And that's not some vague notion about difficulty or resistance or anything like that. It's the actual physical sensation, the feeling that goes with it in this moment, in each moment, right here on the cushion now. That's what's important. So maybe I think I've got the wrong kind of resistance. Maybe that's why I'm doing it wrong. Maybe if my resistance were different. But of course my practice is always exactly what arises in this moment. What I should be doing is not trying to rip the band-aid off emotionally, tear the mask from my face. We know what's under the mask. Another mask. The truth of me is the truth of this moment, the truth of being right here just now. The resistance, whatever that is, that I'm actually feeling in this moment, now. And that's probably not staring down into the void. Because what is the void? The void is just another kind of resistance. But the idea of the void is enough to distract me completely from being the resistance of this moment, as it actually is. It's more of the dreaded should word. Even if I don't say it, even if I'm not going to articulate it, no, practice should be like this, or it shouldn't be like this. And as soon as, I'm in danger of disconnecting, dissociating from this moment and off on some other fantasy. I'm back to doing it wrong. But equally, if we're aware of the resistance, we always think of resistance as a problem. And of course, that's how it always presents itself. If it wasn't some kind of sense of a feeling of a problem, it wouldn't be resistance. But it's also utterly necessary, and it's what our practice is actually about. I always say, the floor. If the floor weren't there, I couldn't walk. Try walking in space. Try swimming in space. It's impossible. It doesn't work. You need resistance. You need the resistance of the earth. I couldn't sit up if it wasn't for all of the bones and muscles of my body working against gravity, resisting the pull of gravity. And in a sense, resistance is just our life. Our life is made up of every kind of resistance. But usually when I'm sitting in this moment, there's some aspect of resistance to the fore, at the front. So maybe as soon as I say resistance, I'm thinking, push through it, overcome it, break through it. No. What's our practice? Being with. Being. Our practice then is just being with this resistance. Being this resistance. In that sense, nothing more. However that shows up, whatever that is, whatever the experiencing of this actual resistance is. Not doing anything, just literally staying with it. And the should itself is probably inevitable. I should push through. I should overcome this. Why? Well, because then, and this is the payoff for the should, I get to make up a story. I can think well of myself because I've pushed through. I can think badly of myself because I failed. I didn't push through. I'm still here in this state, whatever this state is. So I can either think well of myself, which is lovely. It's blissful feeling, this, okay, it may not be nirvana, but does it get better than this? That feeling itself is actually nothing but resistance. It's the resistance of this moment. And so what's my practice? Become aware of my feeling of well-being at having done so well overcoming my resistance. Yeah, I've just changed it into a different kind of resistance. Equally, if I failed, I've still got this nervous tension everywhere. I never get it right. My mind's all over the place. Yes, and this is a story about resistance, and it's just another form of resistance. Aware of thinking badly of myself. That's the practice. That's all the practice ever is. What's actually the feeling? What's actually the experience of this moment? And that includes the stories It includes the elation, it includes the frustration, the embarrassment, the shame, whatever it is that I happen to be feeling in this moment of experience. That's all just resistance, and that's the practice. Not good, not bad, just the practice. And in this sense, it's vital to realise when my zazen begins. Because my zazen begins with the thought of zazen. Because that's when the resistance begins. Beep, beep, beep. Time to do zazen. Or, time to do zazen. Or maybe I've just swung my feet out of bed. Or maybe I've just finished the washing up. Or whatever it is. Time to do zazen. Am I going to rush off to the cushion? Am I going to go, oh no, because, and tell a story about that? And the awareness of that, rushing or that, that's the beginning of my zazen. That's the beginning of my awareness. That's the beginning of my bearing witness, for heaven's sake, to the truth of me in this moment, the truth of this self, this being in this moment. That's my practice. And so, whisper it. Maybe tonight, my practice doesn't actually get as far as the cushion. Because working with this awareness, this resistance is enough. And just as our actual experience of actually sitting in zazen on the cushion, the bench, whatever, is infinitely varied, and mine is going to be infinitely varied, so between us, so too. And of course, we're always wanting to judge. That was the best session I've ever had. Oh no, I was all over the place. Or, well, look at that idiot. Or, oh, they seem to be so controlled. Endless judgment. But that's irrelevant, precisely because one person's practice in one moment may never get them as far as the cushion. But they'll still be doing the true practice. One person may be sitting. I sit 14 45-minute periods a day like Okumura. Yes. Okay, that's their practice. Maybe it's good practice, maybe it's not. Who knows? It's whatever the experience of that is for them, and however they're engaging with that for them. And this is vital to understand. Yeah, two images maybe. This business of feeling I should. I don't want to do my zazen. Well, of course you should. Well, no, of course you shouldn't. It's not should or shouldn't. Let's borrow an image from physics here. Basic Newtonian physics. Every action generates an equal and opposite reaction. And I feel this is the psychic truth of zazen. You've only got to say, you must do this, and immediately the opposite force comes up. Do I try and overwhelm this force? Do I point out that these stories are ridiculous? Maybe my aspiration overwhelms this. Maybe my curative fantasy overwhelms this. But am I just trying to steamroller it out the way? Or I'm actually aware of what's going on? No right, no wrong. Maybe I sit, maybe I don't. Second image, in Qigong, we have the idea of the soft limit. You never push through and extend fully, and never rotate fully or as full as you're capable of. We stay to a soft limit. We're not trying to overexert, we're not trying to strain, we're not trying to dominate. We're working with the body. We're letting the body express itself through action. We're not trying to get a result from it. And the more we do that, obviously, the greater risk of injury we run. But it's not the physical injury which is even the major issue here. It's our whole approach to the practice. And exactly the same applies with resistance. Learning to work with our resistance, managing working with our resistance. This is self-responsibility. This is self-honesty. This is the heart of our practice. Another, I say martial arts. Yeah, and Qigong isn't really a martial art, but Judo, again, art about which I know virtually nothing. But the thing I do know is that you use your opponent's energy and you reroute that energy. And I'm rushing in with my effort. Effectively, I throw myself. That energy I've generated throws me, it distracts me, it pushes me away from the present moment, it pushes me away from the experiencing of my actual resistance in this moment towards a should or a should not, or a result, or a... And what? I've thrown myself again and again and again and again if I'm not careful. So if resistance is practice and resistance is life and resistance is moment by moment, then actually resistance is the journey. But it's also the goal because, hey, the goal is the journey. The journey is the goal. It's practice. It's what Dōgen calls practice-realisation. Because it's just doing it. And that's it. That's the deal. We have the image of the journey to the other shore, crossing to the other shore. But of course the point is that the other shore, the shore of nirvana, the shore of enlightenment, is here. We are already here. That's the whole paradox. But the practice is the journey. And the journey is the practice. Weirdly, our curative fantasy, actually, all the shoulds even, they're just a way of generating resistance. Oh yes, I should, I must. Reality. Resistance. The point is, are we going to be overwhelmed by a resistance? Are we going to be knocked back by a resistance? Are we going to be thrown somewhere else just by the misuse of our resistance? Or, comes back to Joko's suffer intelligently, Barry's desire intelligently, resist intelligently, self-responsibly, self-honestly, with skill, as Qigong, not as some attempt to batter myself into enlightenment. Yeah, resist intelligently. And maybe tonight that means not getting as far as the cushion. Or maybe it means sitting all night. I don't know. You decide. Resist intelligently. Okay, let's see what happens. Let's sit.